even though it's your home field, and that's the other thing. If anybody gets anything out of this podcast, go watch baseball. Help the kids. Go watch baseball.
Right.
Right? Like, why is there only 50 people in the stands? We should have 400 or 500 people in the stands at every high school game at Ricketts. Like, I understand not wanting to go to the complex or Whirly and sit in the sun or whatever, except for Whirly's cover's freaking amazing now.
Yeah, it is.
But go support these kids. Get out there and go watch them play. Help them prepare for Connie Mack.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
The more fans we have in the stands, the easier it's going to be for these kids when Connie Mack comes.
Welcome to Varsity Pulse Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Travis Johnson. Today we got another special guest. It is Mr. Martin Bayless. Man, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, Travis. How are you?
Dude, I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for taking your time. I know you're a busy man. You got a lot of things going. You have a lot of, irons in the fire right now. And I just want to sit down with you and kind of talk about what's going on with you and also with what's going on with FABC, the plans of what you have going on. But before we get down that road, Martin, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit how you got to where you are today in the baseball world.
So in, I think it was 2002, maybe 2003, my wife decided that we needed to help coach T-ball, and her friend were going to be the head coaches, and that wasn't quite working out so well, and I had to step in and help them a little bit, and neither one of us ever coached anything before, but, we got through the T-ball stuff, and I was like, all right, I'm done coaching, handed it off to him to go play for somebody else, and we got put on the team, the Yankees, and the coach that was coaching went on vacation, and he asked me if I could step in and take over while he was on vacation. Well, while he was gone, the parents decided that they didn't want him to come back and coach, and they wrote a letter to the board, unbeknownst to me, and had him removed as coach and asked me to fill in. And then FABC at the time, which was Scott Rose, had asked me to let him know that he was no longer coaching. Like, they didn't even bother to tell him. So he really got shanghaied on the deal, and wasn't really fair to him. I mean, anybody that volunteers their time like that, like, you just don't want to get shanghaied. Like, you deserve the respect that of a face-to-face and answer the whys, right? So that led into me coaching the Farmington Yankees, which was primarily the class of 2013. I had J.C. Cave and Dallas Duvall and the Anaya twins, of course, my oldest son, Austin, Armando. Like, we had so many good kids that played in that deal. And, Doug Wright was coaching the Virus then. And Doug Wright's really who taught me how to navigate FABC, AABC rules. I mean, if there's a man that ever could find the gray in something and make it work for your team, that was the dude, right? Yeah. And so then Scott left the board and Terry Nelson took over, and I got voted in as Willie Mays VP. I did that for a couple of years, and then, of course, they all graduated or got close to graduation. I gave them up when they were 14, 15, and just handed them off to the high school, right? And then we had the twins, and then J-Dub, and of course, J-Dub fell in love with baseball, so I was like, well, from the time he was 18 months, like, he couldn't decide if he was right or left-handed, right? So we had baseball gloves for both hands for the longest time. And so I got together with Matt Cluxton and Thomas Kelleners, and we put together the Farmington Drillers. And Nick something, I don't remember Nick's last name, he was the president then, and he had done something in a game, and I wrote a pretty nasty letter and said, hey, we don't appreciate the way you were talking, you should resign, blah, 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 blah. And so he stepped aside, and I ran for president. Nobody opposed me, and I was there for 7 or 8 years. I don't remember what year it all started, but it was 7 or 8 years. And it's supposed to only be 2 years at a time, right? But nobody wants to volunteer. Nobody. Like I had to beg and beg and beg and beg people to help. And that first year I took over, it was nice. I had Rachel off, and which is now Rachel Graff, and Craig Nelson, and some of the board members stayed over, like Cordova and those guys. And of course the drillers going on during this whole time, right? And we split up coaching wise. Thomas went his way because Caden was just a little bit older grade wise, and he went to go coach in his own older group, the Cutthroats. And then the Cardinals were formed after that. Mike Wolfert wanted to try to put us all together as one because the Cardinals were already a team, but it wasn't working for them or me. So we stayed the Drillers and the Cardinals, and that was a pretty good rivalry for the longest time. Two of the best teams. And I left the board maybe 4 years. I think November, December, right? I was pretty much asked to resign. There were some things going on that they didn't like the way I handled. Retrospect, I could have been a little more couth, not been such a prick about the whole situation. But hindsight's 2020, and I went to Midland. I was always working in Midland during this time, but I stayed there for a while coaching baseball, and I went coaching with the Midland Titans, coached their 18U group, giving lessons out there, all while still trying to do the 505 Panther stuff. And I've been bringing the 505 Panthers, the ones that wanted to travel to Texas, and we kind of combined. And one weekend we beat Panthers, next week we beat Titans, and we had a pretty good success with that. And I don't know that we could have been 2-1 with the Dallas Tigers with us up, bring in Jackson Jordan throwing 95, and J-Dub was pitching. We're the bottom of the seventh. I got a great big missile on the mound going to the University of Texas at the time. He decommitted to them since, but I'm like, yeah, come on, Jub, you're out. Jordan, you're up. Yeah, walk, hit by pitch, home run. And that's one of those games that you wanted to win, right? Like it's the Dallas Tigers. Like we got to win. So that leads us up to where we're at now, basically, and all this AABC stuff that popped up with the Connie Mac. And I will backtrack a little bit there. I went to AABC and the Connie Mac World Series committee, and I don't remember what year Tedro graduated, but it was that year. It was his senior year. And I said, look, we're going to be short of seniors. Both schools don't have a whole lot of seniors. The atypical teams that we had in Connie Mac during that time frame, right? Adam had left. Like, we're not going to be competitive. We should make this a select tournament statewide where we pick and choose the teams that come in, versus the free-for-all that we have now. Like, that's one thing I don't like about this new change is it's wide open. And I feel that if we would have made it an invite, it would have made it a little more special, right? And the player rules that I put in were similar to what we have now, but they had to pick them up prior to the tournament versus after. Like I think if you're going to have that, the kids should be on the team prior to. Yeah. Whether they get to play or not, that's up to them, right? That's their dedication, their hard work, whatever. But let those invited teams pick up whoever the local teams weren't going to have and get them on the team beforehand and make them have a minimum coming into the tournament. And if they want to add in more after because they didn't get whoever, like whatever the best players were, you'll never get me to say my son, right? Like I'm not that guy. I know he's good, but you won't get me to sit here and talk about him being good. So, because there's always somebody better, right? That's what I proposed to them at that time, and I got voted down. And I was like, man, this is going to be ugly. Like, I just knew it's tough for freshmen and sophomores, especially with that 15U rule, which I'll explain that. I put that in, and we call it the Matt Swartz rule. It's kind of like the Buster rule, right? Mike said it in his interview. He said, arbitrary rules by Martin Bayless, right?
Well, he said that a couple of times, yep.
Yep. And what he's getting at is, and I get it from a high school program, right? He was pulling his Mickey Mantle dudes up. Well, as FABC, we had to make sure that the league of Mickey Mantle was staying intact, right? So I put in the 15-year-old rule and it wasn't based at Swartz. It was just, Connie Mack is 16 to 18 and
Hmm.
Mickey Mantle's below that. Well, he wanted a special permission for Swartz kid to play, and we put it up for vote, and it got denied at first, and then it got approved later on. And even though the same deal with J-Dub, right? Like he got denied and then could go play in the series, but it wasn't the same aspect, that rule, as what was done in the last 2 years, right? Back then we had a lot more teams, and with the coaches trying to pull everybody up, if I'm a high school coach, I want my freshmen and my sophomores playing in that Connie Mack league. Like, we're playing those dudes, they should be playing there, right? Like, I get it from that aspect, but and Mickey Mantle just didn't have the competition, period. We'd let teams play up, but it got to a point where we even had to stop that. Like, you had to get access. So that's his arbitrary rules, is we were trying to maintain integrity of the league. And that's how that whole 15U rule got put into place. You
Makes
you can
sense.
cuss me. You can cuss me for it, right? Like, I think
Right.
at one point when they were complaining about it on Facebook, despite whatever's going on with me and FABC, I had their back because I know why I put that rule into play, right? And
Right.
looking back, knowing what I know now, would I have done that rule? No, I wouldn't. As we learn and grow and see the impact, that if a kid's good enough to be playing on varsity baseball team, you shouldn't be telling them no because you're 15, you can't play here.
Right.
And I didn't see that then. I see it now. And it wasn't because of JW, because it affected a whole bunch of other kids, right? And in order to be competitive, if you're going to not allow those guys that are playing on varsity that are 15 years old, and I say this all the time about baseball, sports in general, we don't hold kids back academically. Why are we going to hold them back in sports? Well, I went against everything I've ever said, right? Like when I put that rule into place. That leads us to where we're at today with AABC setting this rule into play. We had tried early on, prior to me leaving the board, to have a developmental center, right? I was working with Randy Kennedy and Jason Hinks and Thomas Kelleners and Albie and all these guys, right? We were working on putting together something that was affordable for everybody, where we could start developing players. Then COVID hit and never really got off the ground because I'm off the board next
Right.
year, right? So I got done in Midland, and we had an issue with people not paying, and like I was supposed to be getting paid, rooms reimbursed. None of that ever happened. Put me and Tiff in a financial situation, not getting paid, right? And I told the owner, I was like, I'll sink or swim with you, but when we come to fall, if they're not paying, I'm not coaching for free. I'm not going through that again.
Right. Makes sense.
And he put it out there and gave him a deadline, and we only had 7 kids. Well, I could have brung up 7 505 guys and could have made it work, but we needed it to be Midland and not 505 Midland, right?
Right.
So this rule popped up, and I was like, man, we got to do something. So I have 2 feelings about it. One, it takes away the entitlement. And
Understand.
when I say the entitlement, like, everybody knows that they could have just, if they put themselves in the right position, you could get on the right team, right? 9 out of 10 times you're going to make the Connie Mack World Series. And
Right.
everybody says it's political. Well, I don't think it's so much political as it is whoever's coaching wants the best kids they can get. And sometimes there might be some daddy ball in there, or might not be. It just depends on who's got the team, right?
Right.
But that entitlement, I feel, is not like your normal entitlement, like, if you were a royal heiress or something along those lines. That entitlement made us a little lazy, I think, locally, where we didn't have the commitment, the dedication, the drive from a greater portion of the population than ever before. Like, we had competitive teams, and we had teams chasing $2 rings and all that stuff, but you can't find me a team one that during the summer didn't have to go find pickup players because they were short because of vacation and this and that and the other, right?
Right.
Well, that's not commitment. That's not being dedicated to your team. I understand things pop up, but when the schedule's set out early and you know that this is a schedule, you need to ride that schedule out. Some of the studs that we had in high school that would just stop doing baseball, during whatever other sport they were playing, and then would struggle coming back and wonder why they're sitting the bench. Well, it's not that you have to pick, but you just can't stop. Like, baseball is one of the hardest sports there is because of how fast the ball moves.
Right.
And if you stop hitting and you stop seeing live pitching while you're doing football and wrestling and basketball, whatever you're doing, you're not going to be able to come back and be who you were when you left. Like, there's very few. I said today to a mom, I was like, Mason Courtney's one of the only kids I've ever seen that's ever been able to do it. And that kid's just blessed all the way around.
Right.
You know, he's just a phenomenal athlete. And I haven't seen too many other kids that can do that.
Agreed.
20-something years of coaching in Farmington, and he's one of the few that I can think of. I also get it from the aspect of it could sink baseball in Farmington because kids dream about playing there, right? Like, J-Dub's dream was to play 4 years in Connie Mack, right? Like, there's not a whole lot of kids. There's very few that put in the work and grind. And I'll use Mike's word, edge, right? Like, there's not dudes that do what he does every day. You know, he's homeschooled for a reason, and that's so that he can be at the gym a couple hours a day. He can be doing everything developmental wise that he needs to do. And I'm not saying people have to do what J-Dub's doing, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. But he loves it so much, and that's what he's looking for. That's the best path for him, right? So this role popped up, and I told Danny, I said, man, this is going to sink or swim. Like, and when I say Danny, I'm talking about Danny Lorett. This is going to sink or swim. We're going to have everybody going 9 different directions. We're going to dilute everything even more. And we kind of need to come together in a sense and try to put something together that's going to make us competitive with the kids that have the drive right now. Because I don't disagree with the 3 to 4 year deal to get us back to where we need to be, to the old Farmington baseball, right?
Right.
Right now, you can't tell me Farmington's a baseball town. I really don't feel that it is. I feel it's more football, basketball, soccer related than baseball.
Right. Absolutely. Right now, I agree with you.
Connie Mack World Series is the only thing that makes us a baseball town. 2010, we were a baseball town. Like, you think back when your dad was coaching, Mark Clark, Bugnell, man, we had 8, 9, 10, 12 dads coaching high school baseball back then.
Right.
I don't remember the last time I've seen a dad coaching baseball in the last decade even, right?
Right.
That's kind of gone away. And those guys were great baseball dudes, right? Like, and Mark Clark, I never thought he'd be a baseball guy, but when I first met him and then watching him coach and watching his kid, like, he knew what he was doing, you know?
Right.
So we lost that edge somewhere. And I think that's where a lot of people say the political thing. Even when Mike was here, I never heard Mike tell somebody they couldn't play for him if they went and did this or that, right? Jeff Corrales said it point blank. Who am I to tell a kid, because I'm not traveling and we're playing in the local whatever, who am I to tell a kid that they can't go play for the Midland Redskins, the Nashville Knights? Right. Even with Martin Bayless, who's going to take you to Dallas, Texas, and Phoenix, Arizona, and you're going to get to go play these national teams. Who am I to stop these kids from doing that? You know, I commend him for that because we didn't have that for a minute, you know? But I also get it from the high school coach's perspective. You want to keep your guys together as long as possible. But in high school, you get pigeon-toed a little bit, you know? Depending on who's on the team and what, your son may be a great second baseman, right? But there's a senior and a junior and a sophomore above him that are great second basemen. So what are they going to do with your kid? You're going to put him in the outfield, right? Or find a different place for him. But the kid loves second base. That's where he wants to play. So he gets pigeonholed. Then when it's time for him to go play there, he's not as good as he used to be unless he was playing there during the summer, right?
Right.
And I think that's where summer ball gives kids the advantage to not be pigeonholed on what they do. My oldest son, for example, and I'll tell you now, I didn't believe it then, but I'll tell you now, he was a PO. I'm glad Mike made him a PO because we called him Crazy Legs because he got in the box and he danced. Like, he couldn't keep his feet still no matter what we did. I used to tie cinder blocks to his feet trying to keep him from moving. It didn't work.
Didn't work.
Justin Galvin actually is the one that gave him the name Crazy Legs. I don't know if you know Justin Galvin.
I played with him in the World Series in '99. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, Justin came out and did a deal for me, and this was when ABA first started.
Okay.
And Justin, I think Justin kind of coined the phrase backspin equals distance a little bit, because the entire time he was here doing lessons and the entire time he was there doing lessons, that's all he talked about was backspin, backspin, backspin. I watched him hit one-handed home run at Justice Park and didn't even try hard, right? Like, he just knew how
Right.
to do it. The dude was a stud. So I got together with Lorett and we had a meeting and talked about it. We kind of cussed and discussed some things. Then one day out of the blue, I get a call from Eli Wyatt, Coach Eli, and he says, "What are you doing for summer baseball?" And I said, "Man, I don't know." I said, "I'm doing something, but I don't have anything tacked down yet." I said, "Here's kind of where I'm at." He says, "Well, let's get together and talk." So Eli and I got together and we went over the woes and the pluses that he had this last year. And um, I told him, I was like, "Man, some of the things that happen in the stands, I'll tell you right now, I've talked to a few of my parents and they're hesitant because of how some of the people acted in the stands during the series."
Right.
And and he said, "Well, that's why I'm coming to you, because we need change." And I said, "Well, here's the kids that I would like to bring, and of course, being the high school coach, I know he wanted to bring more, but we just can't bring everybody.
Right.
We're going to,
There's no way.
no, you can't, not on one team." So Eli and I left that meeting kind of not really knowing what we were going to do. Lorett and I get back together. We talk some more, and I lay out my entire plan for him, which I don't want to lay out everything on here because
Shouldn't.
don't want to give anybody else an opportunity, right?
I
But
agree.
Danny and I got together, talked some more, told him what I wanted to do, and then we had a meeting last Sunday, and all the high school coaches were invited, um, and it was kind of just kick the ball around a little bit and figure out how we're going to make this work, right? And one, you can't take four teams and those head coaches and then put them on one team when it's all said and done. You can't take four head coaches and expect them to be on one team when it's done. That's no way that's going to work. You're
No.
not going to tell Jeff Corrali you don't have a say in anything. You're just going to be the hitting guy, right? Like,
Right. Right.
you just can't do that. And being honest, this is going to be a controversial statement, but being honest, even if you took the best talent between all the cities that we have within a 20-mile radius of New Mexico, right? There's no way we beat ABA. There's no way we beat Mike McGaw and what he's going to be bringing in to the qualifier. There's no way. Could we let them know that we were there? Most definitely. Could we scrap with
Hmm.
them? All day long. But they've got 90-mile-an-hour arms. And as you stated in that deal, we ain't got nobody throwing in the 90s.
No.
And I'm going to stop on that one because I'll bring that up later. Like, we got very few kids in the area that can hit an 88 to 93 mile an hour slider. You got to learn how to hit that. And if you're not
Right.
seeing it, you can't learn how to hit it. Like, you can simulate it on a machine all day long, but until you see that ball, no, it's not. You see that thing coming into your ribs and you're like, you know, it's totally different. With a machine, you feel safe.
Right. It's controlled almost.
Yeah.
But to be
And
able to get it off the read off their hands or fingers to see the spin off the ball, how he releases it every single time he pitches it, that's all stuff you got to see on reps. And I'm sorry, we don't have a coach and or player right now that can do that consistently to help these kids out to get to that next level.
I wish I could throw 88 miles an hour. I wouldn't be sitting here
Me
talking to
too,
you.
man. I don't know. You're old
You
like
know,
me, Mark. You would be forced to retire at this point. I'm just kidding.
oh, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm 47 years old. Like, I got no business throwing 88 miles an hour, right?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So we got together, had that meeting. I think the meeting went well. Everybody's basically on the same page. I mean, everybody. But I had already had my team put together, you
Right.
know, and I told Danny, I was like, "Look, man, I'm not giving up my team. Like, most of these guys that are on this team I've had since they were 7 years old. I'm not giving them up. Some of the other ones I've been working with, giving lessons, helping them get better on their pitching and their hitting. And I feel that I owe it to them to be loyal to them and bring them with me and not put them with somebody else where they may not get the same opportunities that they're going to get playing for me. And with the pickups that we got coming, like I couldn't turn that down. Like we've got some dudes coming, and everybody's like, well, what about playtime? What's my son going to do? And I'm like, we've got to work hard. I'm not going to tell you that you're going to play every inning of every game. You're going to play, right?
Right.
But if you go up there and you strike out and you strike out swinging at air, pulling your head, looking like an idiot, and you're 0-2, guess what? I don't care if you're a pickup or a local guy, you're going to be on the bench.
Right.
If you go 0-2 and center field laid out, sold out, and caught that nice line drive you hit, man, I'm probably not going to pull you, right? Like
Quality at bats, man. It's quality at bats.
quality at bats, on base percentage. Like, they say average doesn't matter, but you got to have average to make all these other ones work, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It'll
These
fall. If
other,
you're hitting the ball and you're doing quality at bats, the balls will fall.
yep. And so I'm like, I can't give it up. And Danny's like, okay, talk to Eli some more. And I told Eli, I was like, man, I ran it through my head a bunch of times, and I'm going to change gears on you a little bit. I haven't worked in 18 months, like a real job. Not that baseball's not a real job, but,
I get you, man. Yeah.
yeah, I haven't had a real job in 18 months. Like I've been a drone consultant the last 15 years. Last 18 months, I haven't been on a rig. I've put in 200 and something resumes, and I get interviews, and some people are like, yeah, there's an offer coming, and I never see the offer. It just, for whatever reason, God keeps pushing me back towards baseball, right? And I don't know. Is it the rule change? I have no idea. Is it being here for my son and spending the quality time with him the next couple of years that every dad wants to spend with his kid? Maybe, but whatever it is, God keeps telling me, no, 200 resumes, you don't get a job, dude. Either you are one horrible dude or
Something else
somebody
is
should.
going on.
Yeah. So I was like, Danny, here's what we need to do. We need to have an A and B team. We got to start now. We got to get our rosters together now. You said it best in your podcast with Jason when you said we got to have rosters being put together yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't disagree with that at all. Like I started after the Connie Mack World Series before I ever even knew any of this was going to happen, because every year I wait and I wait and I wait and I wait, and all right, what's high school going to do? This, that, and the other. I can't pick up some kids being 505 Panthers because they don't want to play for blue, right?
Right.
Which, I get that loyalty, Man, if I'm rocking orange, I don't mind playing for you, but I don't want to be a Panther all summer either. I feel like I'm selling out my school teammates.
Yeah, seriously, yeah.
So I was like, dude, we need to have an A and a B team. And the A team obviously is going to be the it team. And if somebody on the A squad is not getting the job done, or they get in trouble, God forbid they go get a DUI or something stupid along those lines, right? Like it happens. Now we've got somebody to replace them with, and we're not scrambling.
Right.
And not only that, the B team will probably composed of the younger players, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe your JVC team guys more than your varsity guys, but you take them to the same tournaments that you're taking the A team to, right?
Let them both play and get exposure.
Yep. And I'm not putting down any tournament that we have here. We have some great 5-tool tournaments in Albuquerque, but man, we see the same kids over and over and over and over and over again playing in this region up here.
Right.
And that's not going to work. You're not going to go win in Connie Mack World Series playing the same local guys and local being even Albuquerque over and over and over again. I watched good hitters, good players from Farmington take them to Dallas and watch them struggle and lose their minds because they're seeing pitching that we don't get to see every day. Like we've got great pitchers in the state. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But we don't get to see him. Like that dude may be 3A that's dicing it up, or 4A, but we're up here playing in 5A. We don't get to
Right.
see him. And
Mhm.
you might see him one time during the summer at a tournament, depending on how brackets and pool
Right.
and all that other works out, right? You go to big tournaments in Phoenix and Dallas and Denver, and you're playing against other Connie Mac teams, you're going to get better. And I said, so that's what we need to do. I said, the other thing we need to do is we need to focus on 10 and under, and I'm guilty of it. I did it for a long time, even though we had a lot of development in my driller program. 10 and under, they need to go play 1 or 2 tournaments a month, no more than 2.
Right.
They need to play some local baseball, preferably better than what we've had in the past, right? And I'm not saying anything about any one league. Like the league is only responsible for putting it together. It's not responsible for the product that it has, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So I'm not speaking ill about the league. It's the product. Our product hasn't been the same. We get a couple of teams that are dominant, and that's when the whole, oh, it's political, it's money, it's this, it's that, it's the other. Well, a lot of these teams, these guys, like the Drillers, for example, man, I had very little turnover. I probably lost 3 kids off my original 7U team over the
Hmm.
years. And I picked up a bunch, and a bunch left that we picked up because it's a lot of work to be that dedicated and that committed to what we were
Right.
doing.
Hmm. Well, I remember.
Hey, Varsity Pulse fam, loving the podcast. Let's keep the momentum going. Drop a comment and share your thoughts. We want to hear from you. Hit that like button if you're enjoying the show. And don't forget to share this episode with your friends. Spread the word. Follow us so you never miss an update. You make this possible. Let's grow this community together. This is Varsity Pulse Radio, where we talk baseball and talk Connie Mac World Series all year long.
Yeah, like it turned away a lot of people because they're like, man, these guys are 10 years old. They don't need to be doing that. Well, to a sense, they were right. We didn't need to travel like we did. I get that when you're spending $1,000 a summer, it feels good to put it on social media with your kid,
Right. Right.
holding up that trophy. And when you win like that, it's also a recognition of how hard you have worked, right? So let those kids go get that once or twice a month versus trying to do it every weekend. Work on the important things, proper throwing, baseball IQ. How do we take leadoffs? When do we steal? When do we want to bunt? Like those are the things from 10 and under that we need to be focusing on,
Hmm.
and not throwing kids 900 to 1,000 pitches 10 and under. Like that's retarded. And I'm
Right.
guilty of it, right? I'm guilty of it. Nothing comes out of it. My son did not get where he's at today because I threw him 785 pitches when he was 10 years old. He didn't get there today because of that. It was everything
Right.
else other than that. So we're going to put together, we want the 10 and under guys to really focus on development. 11 and 12, kind of the transitional year, right? And where we start applying a little bit more gas to the engine, giving them a little more, increasing more baseball knowledge because now they're able to comprehend a little bit better. And then starting 13, 14 years old, really start in hard on,
Hmm.
pitch development. I'm a firm believer that from the time we're 8 years old, we need to have a plan when we get in the box, period, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I don't even want to say that at that age because we need to be teaching that when they're 8, 9, 10. When we're in
Hmm.
T-ball right now, we're just trying to make contact, right? But once
Right.
that ball starts flying live at us, we need to start thinking about a plan. Do I need to go over here? Do I need to go over there? That's the other thing. We need to teach kids it's not all about the long ball.
Right.
Oddly
No.
enough, that's going to be the new team name is long ball. You know, and Travis, like our kids' age group, we don't have the Shiloh McCalls and the horses, man. We had some dudes, right?
Right.
And those guys could hit jacks whenever they wanted, basically. Ian Dowdy, all those guys. These guys aren't that size, right?
No.
And we got to teach them how to play the game to their abilities, right? We got to move base
Right.
runners. Hit the ball in the middle, create backspin, hit a line drive. If you're going to hit a grounder, make sure it's hard. We don't want no 480
Effort.
hoppers. Nope.
Right.
480 hoppers create outs. And he agreed. I called Eli up and said, Eli, I can't think of anybody else that I need to or would want to coach with right now. And he said, man, I had the same feeling. And I said, well, that tells me right there that we're good to go, right? I've had a pitching manual that I gave my players and kids I do lessons with for forever. I should have shared them with you before this so you could look at them. And then being with the Titans, created a playbook.
Okay.
And so now every player is going to get a playbook, just like football, right? Like,
Right.
here's our signs. You know, it's got in the back, it has where you should be on certain plays. Like, I don't care if you're playing varsity baseball and you're a senior. I've seen a lot of varsity baseball seniors that don't know where to be when they need to be there.
Absolutely.
And now that you have a playbook, there's no excuse for you not to know those things, right?
Right.
There's no excuse for you not to know the signs, verbal, hand. You know, we're giving them a playbook. We want to focus on development. We want to get these kids that can't hit that 18 inches or run at 90 miles an hour. We want to get those kids hitting that. You know, our goal this summer is go win the qualifier, obviously. We're going to play in Denver. We're going to play locally. And if we don't win either one of those, I'll be playing in the other ones, you know.
Right. There's plenty of opportunities there.
Yeah, and we want to keep it true to the region. You know, we got some pretty cool things coming on with our uniforms and that are going to really surprise some people. Like, that's some of the stuff I said I don't want to get in the middle of. And talking to Lorett, I told him I want to start a women's baseball team. You know, USA Baseball has that deal every 4 years where
Right.
girls, women get to go play baseball. And there's other opportunities. I talked to Richard Neely and said, who do you know in these areas? He gave me some contacts of ladies to talk to. And I want to put together a couple of teams and whatever age groups there are out there that allow girls to go play baseball. You know,
Right.
like I asked,
It's a great idea. Great idea.
I asked Susie Chandler, and I don't know if you know who she is or not. She played for Jack Fortner, and before that, she played for Abe Barella. That's how
Okay.
far back I'm going. She graduated in 13. I believe she's now a sheriff. But, man, rock star athlete, baseball. She was better than 7 out of 10 boys all day long, right?
Right.
And she got forced into going to play softball because that's what girls
All you
do.
had.
And I told her, I said, I don't think there's ever been a woman coach in Connie Mack. I was
I
like,
can't
how
think of one.
cool would it be? And not just being a body on the field, actually having an impact with the players, right? Like, that's
Right.
what she can bring to the table. And so we want to focus on that kind of stuff. So it's not just the development, and we want to open it up. We want to have women's teams. We want to support baseball and softball. Like, can't get too many things going at once or you just
Right.
get clustered, right?
Not only that, you're
So,
pulling from a small area. You're trying to add new teams, new things, new areas, and you're pulling from that same pool. And at the same time, you want to be able to grow. But man, our pool's not very big here. Now, if you're pulling statewide, yeah, a little bit bigger. But man, locally, it's pretty tough to pull from the same girls, same boys, because as you know, as I mentioned earlier, there's not a lot that are at that level that we want to continue to work with. You know?
right, 100%. And, you know, there's always going to be a place for recreational baseball. And just because you're competitive in nature and you want to be better doesn't mean you shouldn't play baseball, but you shouldn't have to go play competitive teams, shouldn't have to go play rec teams, and rec teams shouldn't, vice versa, right? You can't tell me, I've seen it too many times and I'm guilty of it. I had a kid that his dad came to me. His name's Caleb, and this is way back when. You know, kid wanted to play for the Yankees. We took him to a tournament. I told his dad, I was like, man, you know, he's good. He just needs some work, but I don't know that I'm going to get him the play time that he wants, that he needs to get better because I've got 2 other dudes behind him. I said, I just can't take him, right? Like, not that you're not good enough, but
Right.
I've already got a full staff. Not that I don't want to train you, but I got no room for you. Well, that kid spent the next 2 years inside the strike zone every day. Every day he was down there hitting off the machine for 2 hours every day. And I showed up to a game one day and they're announcing who's playing and they announced Caleb's name. And I was like, holy shit, he did it. Right? Like,
Right.
I was proud of him. Like, I felt bad that I had to tell him no, but I was so proud that he worked that hard that he got the starting job for FHS at second base because of his work ethic, right?
Right.
That's what we're missing today with a lot of these kids. You know, the whole pay me, pay to play, instant gratification. That's where we're hurting right now. And
Right.
Farmington's always been 10 years behind everybody else, right? And would Connie Mac be what Connie Mac is without Farmington? Absolutely not.
Correct.
If it wasn't for the host families and the volunteers and the community, I don't know of another tournament that's going on 60 years in the same place and
Right.
still has notoriety at that, right?
Right.
And Connie Mac is making a comeback, not because of the televised stuff, but, you know, and PG and PBR are probably going to send me a lawsuit notification when I say this, but man, their stuff's kind of getting watered down, right? And
Agreed.
coaches are getting tired of it.
Right.
And you still got to qualify to get to Connie Mac. You don't get a freebie. Well, you do, some of you.
That's why
But
we're talking.
even those go less and less, right? Like, I think you're going
Yeah.
to see less and less freebies, right?
I think so. And you know what? Let's talk about that for a minute. I think that the automatic bid is a good thing for the familiarity for the fans. Okay? They like the consistency of seeing. I'm going to go both sides of this. They like to see the consistency of seeing the Midland Redskins every year. They like seeing, D-back coming every year. The host team, that's another different. That's not really an auto bid. That's just, it kind of is an auto bid. I mean, but it's not anymore. It was until this year. You just have to be that one team that beat the 6 other teams in your league, and here we go. But on the baseball side, I love seeing the Midland Redskins because they're always a legit team. They put a program together to make them consistent every single year. Sure, they haven't won it the last 2 years, dude, but they're a legit organization that have made it here. However, if they went and played a qualifier every year, I guarantee you they wouldn't be making it here every year because baseball is baseball. Dude, you never know what's going to happen. You could be prime example. I hate to say this, but I'm watching the freaking Braves. They should have won that game, and then also they lose it in the 8th and 9th inning. Well, the whole game they're in the lead until that inning. You never know when a pitcher's going to just blow the game open because the one guy makes an error. Baseball. Baseball is baseball. So prime example is this year when Midland Redskins played through the World Series. Well, they lost to SoCal Renegades in a way that nobody thought it was going to happen. They got shut out. Are you kidding me? When was the last time we saw the Midland Redskins get shut out? They put together a legit team. So in saying all of that, by putting them, using them as an example because they're here every year, into a qualifying tournament, absolutely they would be upset because they don't have that free ticket anymore. But they've lost 2 years in a row in the championship game. The year before that, I don't think they won it in. I'll have to look at my numbers. I don't remember the last time they won it.
2 years ago, right?
3. So 2020, 2021 was. I'll have to look. I will do the research and I'll make sure we post it on here. But I should know. I've looked at every single one of person that's ever won since 1965. But in saying all that, okay, they haven't won the last 2 years. Yes, they absolutely have been in the championship game, but they didn't win it. So do we continue to give them auto bid? Do we give D-back? They were one of the first teams out this year. Do we give them an auto bid? I don't know. However, by them earning it, they put together a different approach in coming into the Connie Mac World Series, in my opinion, compared to the Dallas Patriots. Prime example. Dude, those guys traveled 3,200 miles to get to the Connie Mac World Series. Sure, they weren't one of the better teams when they got here, but they put some tires on the road. They played 3 qualifiers to get here to finally make it to this to this stage in the Connie Mack World Series. Same with Tulsa Sandlot. They played 3 different ones. I feel like it makes a better all-around World Series when you're making these kids earn it to get here instead of just giving the auto bid. That's my opinion, but I like the
So
auto bid as well, the fan side of things. I see both sides.
I think in Midland's defense, and not knowing this until this year, and everybody complains it's not really a World Series because we had, 7 Texas teams in it, right?
6,
Well,
yeah, 6.
it's not our fault or AABC's fault or the Farmington's fault that these Texas teams traveled all over the United States to play in these qualifiers, right? But it just goes to show that Connie Mack is making a comeback to being
Right.
the premier event, right?
Yeah.
And not that Midland was taking it easy, right? Because they never take it easy. Like, they're too quality to take it easy. But I don't think they were expecting what they got the last 2 years in the competition because it's changed that much.
Absolutely.
And just in even talking to pickup guys, like 5 of the kids I've talked to, they're like, all we want to do is hit Connie Mack qualifiers. That's all we want to do. And I'm like, well, that's great. But
Right.
once we win one, we can't play in another one.
Right.
Like, you're done. We got to find other quality events to play in.
The
And
Cajuns, prime example. They went out there to the Ozarks and won their first qualifier. They only played in, I think, one more tournament after that to get ready for the World Series. Well, geez, if you're not playing legit competition, you might as well just take the summer off because you're not making your team better. So,
Farmington,
hey, I got to admit, the good thing about Farmington Scorps, they went up to the Denver qualifier. Sure, they didn't win it by any means. They didn't place in the top 10. But at least they traveled up there and played some legit competition. Sure, they didn't play in the World Series this year, how that all worked out. But it's just, okay, let me back up a little bit. I played in 99. So for the Farmington Rebels, I played with Justin Galvin, Chad Christie, Tyson Snyder, a handful of a bunch of other players. We played in the World Series that year. Well, we traveled to Dallas twice, I think, once to Phoenix. We played in some legit tournaments, and we were set. We played 66 games that year. So
yeah.
we played a lot of flipping baseball, and we were solid. We won our first 2 games in the series. Of course, that was before the pool play. But we played, double elimination. We won our first 2. Then we lost our 3rd game against some Washington team that beat us 16-15. And then we got slaughtered when we played the East Cobb Yankees. They just beat 18-2. But, man, we played really good baseball all summer. And I feel like you had 10 years to that, and the baseball is just kind of the competition. No, maybe 15 years from that. The baseball competition here has just kind of slowly started tapering. And I don't think we're quite, like you said earlier, we're just not there yet. We're catching up.
Team. Let's talk about your team. Because my
Yeah.
brother graduated in 2000, right? So
Okay.
I know Benji, and I know Mug, and I know Fat Ty,
Yep.
Spaz, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Spaz and I, to this day, still talk baseball once a week minimum, right?
Right.
And I watched him go through all of his stuff when he was trying to make it pro. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody that had an arm like Josh Ashton. That dude had an absolute cannon and footwork.
Yeah.
His footwork, like, when he was on, his stick was amazing. But, man, all Josh lacked was a little bit of mental, right? Like, if we'd have known the mental stuff that we know now, Josh would have been pro. Hands down. Mug, dude, Tyson Snyder. That guy, one of the better pitchers I've ever seen. Benji. That
Right.
dude had Popeye forearms, right? Like,
Absolutely.
who has forearms like that guy? Like, that team had some studs, dude. Like,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chad Christie, gosh, I recall we're playing in the World Series. I'm playing right field. Ball's hit to center field, hits the base of the wall. Chad Christie runs back, grabs the ball flat-footed. One hops the catcher. The guy's rounding around third base. One hops the catcher and hoses the guy rounding third before he gets home. That I've never seen a ball thrown like that in my entire life outside of Major League Baseball. It was unreal. And I was fortunate enough where I got picked up on that team, was able to play in 99 of the World Series.
that play at home plate with Mitch, man, like, I can't remember what game it was against, and maybe you do. Mitch was catching. and like you guys ended up winning the game, and maybe that's one that you were talking about that you won, but they showed it at his funeral, right? Like that
Okay.
highlight of Mitch at home plate, and I wish I had that highlight because that was probably one of the best plays I've seen in a long, long time at home, and that's when catching was catching, right? Like pre-Buster Posey BS.
Right. Right.
That,
Just
that team was
and we were
that team was
solid, man.
stacked. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was fortunate enough because I was an Aztec boy and I was the guy that got picked up and played right field. So I was really happy I was playing with all these Farmington kids, because Aztec was a 3A school. Farmington, of course, was I don't know if it was a 4 or 5A school at the time, but of course they were the state champions. They keep winning all the time. And then I got picked up on this team and I was I don't want to say black sheep for a while, but I kind of was because I took some spots from Farmington to play on this team, and I'm this little, you know, I don't want to say hick from Aztec, but that's kind of what it felt like being on that team, because I was the outsider coming in, but I proved myself, and I played it every single day that summer, and I allowed myself to be a part of that team to get us into the Connie Mack World Series. And dude, that was one of the best seasons I ever had in my life. Now, outside of high school, like collectively as a team and everything, it was good. Gosh, man, we had so much fun. So much fun. I think we only lost like 7 or 8 games that summer. We were just a good, legit ball team. Good team. Yeah.
Yes. And that's some of the stuff. Like, look at that team. Like, that's a prime example of everything we're talking about. It was a collective effort.
Right.
You know, 99 PB was new, right? Because 96 was its
Yep.
first year.
Yep.
That's when Laughlin was there. You know, there wasn't a big push on the summertime. You got to do this, you got to do that
Right.
thing, right? Like, it was easier to put everybody together. And I guess if you want to talk politics, that would be the politics area that maybe everybody refers to, is because it's just not as easy to go in and say this is what we're going to do. But the game has changed so much since then too.
Right.
You know, hitting's definitely harder. Pitchers are
Mm-hmm.
getting better, right?
Right.
And we keep coming up with stuff for pitchers to get better. We haven't come up with anything for hitters to really get better. Like, there's some great tools out there.
Right.
Like Win Reality, for example, great tool. Rapsodo, great tool. Hit Track's great tool. But it doesn't mean you're going to be a hitter.
Right. You can see what you do when you do hit, but the ultimate thing of course, the hitting, as you know, is the consistency of keeping this. You're swinging the same, no matter the pitch, the count, whatever else. Really hard to do, but that just takes reps over time, and I think that's the
realizing
hard
that
thing.
kids aren't robots. That's the other
Yes.
thing. Like, I saw it over so many years. You go and watch coaches coach locally, and they're all trying to teach the kids the same movements, not taking into consideration their personal movement patterns, the way their hips. Like, when I went and got on base U certified, it opened up my eyes. Like, not to be a personal trainer, but the
Right.
whole point of getting on base U certified was so that you could talk to a trainer, right? And be like,
Right.
hey, this guy's internal rotation is doing this. His external rotation is doing this. Look at his hip speed compared to his hand speed. Like, these are the things that we need to focus on when you're working out with him.
Right.
And that's how baseball has gotten better, old school versus new school, right?
Right.
Not that the old school guys were doing anything wrong. They just didn't have the cool tools.
No,
It
they
was,
didn't have the technology then.
yeah, it was
They could
coach's
just
eye.
see it. They could see it. Those coaches, that's all they did every day. They weren't breaking it down in film. Now, if they did, they were one of the ones that had a lot of money because they had a video recorder, and they were able to sit back and set up on their little big, huge screen TV or whatever that weighed 7,000 pounds, and they're able to watch back that way. But that was less than 1% of the coaches then. I mean, that was a select few. You just saw and you fixed it right then and there, and the coach could see, hey, your hands are behind, your hips are, whatever the case may be. You're not getting full rotation. Your hands are dragging through. Whatever that is, they can see it immediately. And now I think there's still coaches that can, but then they see it on video, and then they can really break it down to get those little adjustments to happen.
Well, the other thing is we'll use coined terms, right? Get on top of the ball, right? Stay back.
Right.
Well, if that kid that you're telling to get on top of the ball and stay back, doesn't know what you're talking about, he's going to do something stupid. And then you're going to get angry at him because you really didn't know what you were talking about. You just heard that good team over there saying it. So that's what you did, right? And
Right. Exactly right. And that happens a lot.
it does. And that's one of the things that we want to focus on, when Danny and I got together was, Strike Zone's got Tim and Sean there, and they're doing great things, and we're just trying to build on top of that, right? And even though we're affiliated with Strike Zone and everything's going to be going through Strike Zone, he's got Roots, which is the national deal, right? And then
Yep.
Long Ball is going to be the local thing, right? For the immediate future anyways, right? You can't say what tomorrow will ever bring, right? But the
I
immediate
get it.
future. And for the first time in my life, my job is going to be baseball, right? Day in, day out. And that's going to give me the opportunity to put together, like we were talking in the beginning, help these kids get these videos put together so they can send them out to their schools. I'm not a college recruiter guy, but if I can help you go take video, put that video together so that you can get it to your recruiting guy or doing it on your own, whatever the case may be. But, I got to give a plug to Lewis Birch right here. Like, if you're looking for somebody that is reasonable and knows what they're doing and has great contacts, he has a smoking deal that he gives because they're local, right? They used to be local, even though he lives back east now. His brother's in Arizona. He still takes care of Farmington people. And if you want to get a great recruiter, I had him for Austin, and that was 2013. We use him for my daughters. J-Dub's with him. I've probably sent 15 people to him this year. He's affordable. He works with you, and he can help you get there. And so I got to give that plug to him because too many people don't know where to go, right?
Well, let's do more than that, Martin. At the end of this, send me his information. We'll tag it in not only the YouTube video, but any of the stuff that moves forward so that people can get connected with them. Because this is one of the many reasons why I want to do this podcast is just that, is getting these young men or women to get out there and get themselves exposed, to get out there to the next level of sport, wherever that may be, if that's from softball or baseball or whatever.
Yeah, he'd love it. I remember when he started out, and the dude's done a phenomenal job. And the best thing about Lewis, I'm not going to say any other recruiting companies' names because I don't think it's fair. But
Right.
you pay them the money, and it's usually anywhere between $2,000 and $3,000. Well, Lewis is less than that. And once you get where you're going, you're done, right? Lewis isn't that way. When you graduate and you got that diploma in your hand, he's done with you. So, prime example, Austin went to Colorado Northwestern, quit after 1 year, took a year off. We called Lewis, said Austin's ready to go back to school. He found him a 4-year scholarship offer in Minnesota.
Wow.
Right? My daughters were at Adams State. We're really frustrated. COVID really hurt that whole situation, because they graduated in 2020, and that August they go into school, right? And things weren't the way they were when they were there. And anyways, called up Lewis, and we didn't have to pay Lewis for the girls at that time because Adams State, and they fell in love with the coach. So that we just jumped on the Adams State bandwagon. But I called him when it was time, and then they wanted to transfer, and he's like, I got you, right?
Right.
Boom. No hard feelings. I understand. It was easy. Wish everybody had it that easy.
Right.
But you're right. Too many people don't know where to go, and they don't know what it takes to get it done. And that's some of the stuff that we've lost here locally is, the Don Loretts and the Mike McGaw's and those guys that had deep connections, that were helping kids get places. And recruiting's gotten so much more difficult, and all the new NC2A rules, the super senior crap, all that stuff's really changed the whole landscape. And I tell all the 25s and 26s, I'm like, dude, if you're not going to be an immediate impact guy for a D1, if you're not throwing 95 and have proven yourself playing against teams like the Skins or playing for the teams like the Skins, you're probably not going to get a D1
Right.
offer where you're going to be able to show up to Vanderbilt and get it done on day one,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, so now they changed that rule with the redshirt freshman deal, right? Where you don't lose that year of eligibility. Well, that's great, but you still got to sit out a year. And
Right.
and I don't even think they realize what they're doing, and maybe they do, and they're smarter than I give them credit for. But the best thing a kid can do, like J-Dub, for example, we all know that he's a great pitcher, but he's also a great hitter, and that doesn't get near the attention as his pitching because he's left-handed.
Right. Oh yeah, that left-hander. Oh yeah, that's you're probably,
And
I don't know, if you base it on points, he's 2 points ahead of any right-hander unless that right-hander is throwing 95, just because he throws strikes, he's consistent, and he's left-handed.
right, and you're going to get in even if he didn't increase his velo at all, he's going to get to go to school somewhere, right?
Right.
But he wants to be a two-way guy, and we're talking to the University of Washington, and they're like, man, that's a lot. Like, I don't know that you understand what you're asking for.
Like I do.
And he's like, I don't care. Like, I'm that guy. I want to work. Like, I don't want to give up my bat. You don't want me to play outfield. You don't want me to play first. Cool. I want to DH and I want to pitch. You talk to Lanisa in California, and they're like, as long as you keep the grades up and you can do both workouts, come on, prove yourself.
Right.
And that's a JUCO. And if college was smart, these guys would start hitting these JUCOs. And let's just face it, like, I don't care how good you are, you're going to have some homesickness when you first
Right.
leave, unless you're used to not
No.
being with your parents.
Right. I did.
Yeah.
I played JUCO,
Everybody
man.
does.
JUCO, I feel like JUCO is a great path for probably, I don't know, maybe I'm a little high on this, 85% of athletes going, especially baseball. Now, football, I don't know. I can't give you anything or opinion
I
on
can't
there.
even.
But baseball wise, I think there's so many kids that are, I hate to say it, but immature. And so you got to grow up. But JUCO is, I guess, a slower way of growing up because you're not thrown into some D1 school where you're in a classroom with 300 students and you're just a number and you're kind of fighting yourself, but also fighting all of the things around you. A JUCO, you go in there, smaller classrooms. It's easier to get your feet wet within the whole college realm of things. And you go out there and play baseball. I feel like that's a great step for most future
I don't
college
disagree
athletes
with you
going to JUCO.
85%. I think nationwide you're probably pretty close because, like Mike said in his deal, the mid-majors guys, like, yeah, there's some D2 and D3 guys out there or NAIA, but
Right.
if NC2A was smart, they would treat JUCO, D2, D3, and NAIA just like the minors, right?
Right. That's exactly what
And,
it should.
yeah, and now with the changes in scholarships that are coming, where they're going to be able to give full rides, rosters are going to drop 10 kids.
Right.
So you're losing 10 spots, but now you're able to give all those kids a full ride, just like football. And then you got NIL on top of it. Like, my Lord, you get
Right.
$60,000 NIL money right off the bat, right?
It's ridiculous.
Plus the scholarship.
Right.
But you had to go put in 2 years of hard work, or maybe even just a year. You got to go prove yourself at JUCO. You got to go rake the field. You need to go grind it out. You need to go play 175 baseball games and show us that you're the dude that we think you are.
Right. Minor
I
leagues.
don't
That's
think.
a perfect way of looking at it. Minor leagues.
Yeah.
Grind it out, man. This is a grinding time. Let's figure out who you are and where you're going to be from this point on. If you can get through this, man, you'll fit well into our program where you don't even have to touch a rake for the next, 2 years of your college career.
And if you're that good, maybe you don't even make it into D1. Maybe you get drafted.
Right. Right. Seriously.
But yeah, that's our end goal. The strike zone's opening up a place in Las Vegas. I didn't know this until yesterday, but there's not even a D-bat in Las Vegas.
Really?
Yeah, that surprised me. Like, of all the organizations out there, because D-bat's everywhere. I was told there's not even a D-bat in Vegas. I didn't look that up, but Vegas is the next hotbed, right? You got the Athletics are moving there, the Raiders are there. Vegas is the next hotbed, and it's only going to help this portion of the United States grow, and it's going to help us get better quality coaches at those colleges. And I don't know, like just talking, Danny, the goals that they have set for strike zone, aka roots and long ball, you know,
Yeah.
uh,
So they do have one in Vegas. It's called DBAT Paradise. It is in
okay.
Vegas. It looks like it's fairly new. So I bet they're just getting off. And I didn't say when it started, but yeah, it's there. But you're right. That is a hotbed for not only baseball, but just sports all the way around. Is people are, teams are just flooding there. And well, you can play baseball year round. You don't have to
It's
worry
the new
about weather.
Phoenix.
It really is. I hate to say that because I'm not a fan of Vegas. I just got back there from last week, man. I'm not a fan of Vegas, but overall, man, it's going on there. It's going to continue to grow and be bigger on the baseball realm of things. And dude, got to get in there
But
somehow.
it's
Got to get in there
but it's
somehow.
also central, right? Like from a
Yeah,
baseball perspective, you can be in Phoenix in what, 5, 6 hours.
5 hours. Yeah,
You can be in LA in what, 4 hours.
yeah. It's like right there in the middle of the stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, Utah, like Utah's even got some great tournaments that people don't realize. There's Mesquite, Nevada holds one of the best fall tournaments I've ever seen. So that's our goal is, you know, they're focusing on getting that going. We're going to focus on getting this growing down here. We really want to make it full development. And when I say full development, we teamed up with people like Stacy Zepser for yoga,
hmm
you know. So when you pay us, like we're going to include your yoga session. Like I don't think baseball players need to be doing yoga like daily, right? But they need to be doing yoga to limber up everything that gets tight.
right, right.
And I'm no sports conditioning guy, but that's just my opinion. You know, Trotter's great at doing what he does. Daryl Dryden, Train to Win. Like we're working with all these different people.
Mhm.
When you pay us, these are the things that we're going to do when we tell you this is your cost. So take, for example, how much does it cost to play for the Drillers? $1,800, right? And that was for
Right.
your uniforms and your tournaments. Well, now when I tell you $1,800, and I'm not saying that's the number, it's just an arbitrary number. It's going to be, you're going to get yoga, you're going to get workout, you're going to get another deal that we've got going on is there's this thing called Kilo Gear. And
Okay.
we brokered a deal with Kilo Gear, and I hooked Stacy up with it because it works for all sports, but goes on your upper arms up here and on the
Okay.
outside of your thighs, and they got wrist and ankle weights. Uh, Kilo Gear is going to bring the Dodgers training organization to Farmington. We're going to be a certified facility with Kilo Gear,
Wow. Okay.
and the Big Hurt is a spokesperson for Kilo Gear. You have some
Really?
kids who the Big Hurt is, and they're like, "What?" And
Ray Thomas,
so,
boys, let's go. You better know this stuff.
right? So I asked J-Dub, I was like, "Hey, would it make a difference to you if I told you that the Big Hurt was endorsing Kilo Gear?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah," I was proud. Like that's one of those proud dad moments, right? Like, yeah. And thank
Right.
you, MLB, the show.
Right. However you
But
learned it, it doesn't matter. However you learned that, he learned it. So
yeah, so we're going to be a certified facility. Stacy's going to be, Train to Win will be. You know, they're seeing at the major league level, they're seeing 3 to 5 mile an hour increases with velo on pitching. They're seeing up to 10 mile an hour bat speed increases.
wow, that's huge.
And dude, I've been wearing it for 6 months, and I've got, I probably throw 900 balls a day, right? My shoulder and my elbow are toast. And I started wearing this stuff, and not only did it change my arm pattern, right? Like I'm not coming across anymore. It's forcing me to stay out like I should be out here.
Okay.
And so my shoulder pain has started to relieve. When I started throwing 52 mile an hour as hard as I could get, I'm up to 65, baby. Like now I can throw some real
Woo!
BP. I'm probably topped out
You
at
just need to
65.
scoot up. you see the skew with the L screen up a little bit. So Jake Dub was like, okay, this looks like an 85 mile an hour fastball. All right.
Right? It's funny you say that, dude. Last night I went to throw him a curveball, and it was curving. It was 12-6, and it was curving, but man, did it look like a changeup from the backside. He just started laughing at me. He's like, that is the worst pitch I think I've ever seen in my life. But I was so sore, like, because we worked out the day before, and I threw a bunch, and I was so sore, and I went to throw that curveball because that's the other thing. Tom House, we're going to have Tom House going to be integrated. Pitch AI is going to be integrated. The great thing about Daryl Dryden at Train to Win is when I give him J-Dub's pitch AI data, which shows every metric you can measure, right? And I take it to him and I say, Daryl, here it is. I don't even have to explain it to him because Daryl already understands all of that stuff. Like, put it to you this way, Daryl's so dedicated to training individual athletes and in the sport they're in properly. Because he lacks in some baseball knowledge, he paid for himself to go to the ASMI in Alabama conference for a week to learn about elbow injuries and shoulder injuries. Like, he's that dedicated to getting it done.
Wow.
And making sure that we're taking care of our overhead athletes. Because what people don't realize is, football has Tommy John.
Mm-hmm.
Swimmers have torn shoulder muscles all the time. Right. Volleyball players, same deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he has all those athletes. So it benefited him tremendously to go and do that. And, we're going to pay coaches to coach the team so that we can help grow the coaches, right? Like, I was talking to a mom today whose dad coaches a team, and I said, well, two things, right? A, if he's bringing his team, even if it's only 5 or 6 kids, it makes it easier to grow on that team versus onesies and twosies.
Right.
But 2, it also gives him a little more relaxation because he's got kids that he knows, right? And knows that, okay, we're going to pay you. I'm throwing out arbitrary numbers again. We're going to pay you $1,000 a month, and we're going to cover your hotel rooms. Well, if you'd offered me that 10 years ago, I'd have been all over it, right?
Right.
And we're going to go watch their games, and we're going to help the coaches learn. If it's a dad that doesn't have the background, like if it's Frank De Hoya's coaching it, then, we don't need to go watch Frank, right? But
right.
We got Joe Blow doing it. We're going to help Joe Blow turn into a good coach, right? We're going to help develop him, not just the players, but the coaches. The biggest thing I'm proud of that we're going to do is we're going to sit down with the parents and the athletes individually, and we're going to put them through a workout. Here's your scores. Here's where you fit, right, within our organization. Here's where we think your potential is.
Right.
What are your goals? What are your aspirations? And then we're going to put together individualized plans for those athletes that they can take home with them, where now what you have to do. There's no excuses anymore. I tell you can't hit, but I don't tell you how to fix it. We're going to make it where you know what's wrong, what you have to do. If it's lessons, come get lessons. If it's nutrition, come get nutrition. Man, if you're 6'2", running a 7'4", well, man, we need to focus on speed and agility, bro, because you're slow.
Right.
You're not going to make it very far. You might want to go look at. Yeah. So that's the stuff that, and man, when Danny and I sat down and talked, it was, like I said in the beginning, God had told me no to everything else for a reason, and all this stuff's coming together. So this is called the flex grip. Right?
Move it over. Oh, okay. Yep. I've seen that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's for helping increase spin, protecting the UCL. Like, this thing is going to be a game changer for athletes. Like, when you put it on,
crazy.
You put it on and you line up your fingers where they're supposed to go, like so. And then you get on the app, and it's not motorized, so it doesn't do it for you. Like, you've got to move these carbon fiber rods, right? But this thing will tell you, based on the data you put in for your size, weight, body fat percentage, so on and so forth, what your top end should be, right?
Oh, okay.
So if it says,
is it measuring like the tightness of your
it measures everything in your muscles and your tendon elasticity,
Okay.
measures all of that stuff.
Okay.
And its claim to fame is obviously keep this from getting torn, right?
Mm-hmm.
The UCL. Almost every MLB organization has this now and using it.
Okay.
ABA has 15 of these.
Wow.
Like somebody told me the other day, Tim Campos is the elbow whisperer. I don't know if that's true or not, but um, so what this thing does is it tells you that where you're at. So I won't name the player, but when I was talking to the CEO, that's the other thing. You get to talk to the CEO when you buy one. The CEO was telling me that one of the kids that they have, and he doesn't throw this slow, but the device said that his max output was 82 miles an hour. Well, this kid's throwing
Okay.
a lot harder than 82, okay? And that device, now we know based on their testing data and all that stuff that this kid's max for his body with zero injury, right? And doing mechanics perfectly, so on and so forth, is 82 miles an hour. But you're throwing
Mm-hmm.
93, right? So now we know that we got to strengthen you and help develop the other parts of you to where you don't wear and tear your body down. And we're able to keep you at 93 or above, right?
So
So
I'm trying to wrap my head around. Okay, so it's say he's throwing 93 miles an hour, and this tool says he should be throwing 82 miles an hour, right?
it's
So is
possible
that
that it
saying
comes in lower.
okay? So is that saying that his tendons and forearms and muscles and whatever else are
Taking excess
not
damage.
okay? So that means he's pushing his body too hard at that moment, and he's not caught up to what he should be, what his velo is. Is that what
Right,
I'm
so
understanding?
his velo is exceeding what his body's capable of doing, right?
So that
So
means you're
you
putting
know
more
the
stress on your body.
right, you know the term you can only go as fast as you can slow down, right? So deceleration is everything in pitching.
Hmm.
Well, if we use Austin for example, he was 6'2", 120 pounds. Like his tendons took a beating, right? Because he didn't
Right.
have any muscle, he didn't have any back end, he didn't have any legs, he didn't have anything to help support everything else that was going on.
Right.
This thing, because as you know, tendons you can't make bigger, you can only make them thicker, right? Like you can
Hmm.
work your tendons out and make them thicker, which in essence, I guess, is stronger. But the whole idea behind this is, the stronger your hands are, the old bucket of rice. It's like the bucket of rice deal with measurement on it. It's all it is.
Okay.
Roger
I got you.
Clemens for years, karate guys, right?
Hmm.
Buckets of rice. It was to strengthen your hands and your
Right.
tendons, right? That's the whole point of that is to do that. And
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. So preventative and also to see where you're at to see what you need to work on.
yep, we're working
Okay.
on post, pre, we want all the kids. The grand idea when you're all said and done is you get injured in a game locally, we can get you seen, we can get your imaging, we can get you cryo, hyperbaric, whatever you need immediately, right?
Hmm.
We can get you taken care of. The development doesn't stop just based on what's up here and what you can do out there. It's
Right.
also what we do in between, right? And those are the things that we're going to focus on doing is growing that to where we're a full shop. You need a tutor. Boom, let's get you a tutor. Because grades have got to be there too, right? We talk
Oh,
a lot about
absolutely.
everything else, but grades have got to be there. And
That, I don't know. To me, grades are one of those things that you could be a phenomenal athlete, but you can't take care of yourself in the classroom. Well, I don't know if I want you on the team. And I'll be a prime example of that. So my senior year, when played the North-South All-Star game, and a U of A recruiter, so University of Arizona, comes up to me and says, "This is before, of course, internet, as you know. You don't have that access like you did then." Comes up to me after I just got done playing North-South All-Star game, and he says, "Hey, what is your GPA?" And I said, I'm going to say it on air here, but it was a 2.83. And he says, shook my hand, says, "We love how you play, but you just don't have the grades," and walked away. That was the biggest eye opener that I ever experienced. Of like, hey, I don't care how good you are. If you can't do it in the classroom, why do I want you around? So thankfully, my kids are doing really well in the school area. I'm so thankful that they do a lot better than I am. Bryce has,
Oh,
I think, a 3.88 and or 3.89, whatever. And then Brooklyn, I think, has, well, she's a freshman this year, so she'll have probably a 4.0. I'm assuming she hates having B's. And then my stepson is right there in that 3.5 range. So fortunate enough that we're all right there in that same category better than I was. I'm like, don't learn from my mistakes, or do learn from my mistakes in the sense of, dude, you're doing great, on the field. You better be doing stuff behind the classroom because that's what really, really keeps you from going from this school to this school or not going to school at all. So I was fortunate enough because I went to JC after that, but I missed a huge opportunity just because my grades were terrible.
yeah, but you say you missed an opportunity, but you learned from it, right? And it made you
Yeah,
better when you went to JC, and it's something that stuck with you that you could pass down to your kids and be like, don't do what I did. Like,
right.
everything happens for a reason, right?
Everything happens for a reason. Absolutely. And honestly, I'm glad I went the JC route. Like I said earlier, I wasn't ready to go to D1. Man, I wasn't mature enough. I realized that I was a small fish in a big ocean. And, you're coming from Little Aztec where the population 6,000, and then you go to a D1 school that a classroom's bigger than your school. A classroom is bigger than your graduating class. And I don't know if I would have done well with that. So I thank God that, I went down this other route. And I think it's a route that a lot of kids probably should go if they go. If you make college baseball, you're a legit baseball player. Sure, you're not one of the best in the country per se, but you kind of are because it's like 7% of all high school baseball players make it to college and able to play in any college. It doesn't matter if it's JC or NAIA or D3, D2, or D1. Man, it's a select few that go on to the next level. Be happy that you made it to the next level. Now just keep working hard and hopefully you can make it to that next level. If that's going to JC to D1 or if that's going to JC to getting drafted, whatever the case may be, man, it takes a lot of work to get to that one spot. And I was just fortunate enough where El Paso Community College gave me a chance, and I was able to play 1 year there, and I played 3 years at New Mexico Highlands. So fortunate, but grades wasn't why I got there. That's for sure.
I used to have there was one coach in particular, and I won't say his name, when I was president. They would always say, I don't know why we're focused on this and that and the other. Only 3% of kids get to move on and play ball and blah, 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 blah. Well, that's like saying you shouldn't ever dream, right? And you shouldn't have any goals. You shouldn't have any expectations of getting better in life. Don't just settle for mediocre, right? Shoot for the
Mm-hmm.
stars. And if you fail, man, so what?
Right.
Dust yourself off, move on to the next one. I told J-Dub when he was little, because he's been a great pitcher from the time he was a little kid, and he started to get in that mode where you get a little cocky, right? And he was 8 years old when we had this conversation, and I was like, bro, there's a difference between having humility and being an asshat.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you can't let anything that happens in the game bother you. You've got to stay centered, right? You can't listen to what's going
Right.
on out here. Stay in your own head. Who cares what they're saying over there in the dugout? And I don't know if you watched the game or not. I'm sure you did. But when they played FHS and,
Oh yeah, I was doing the radio.
and at the end of the game, and this is the first time in my life I've ever seen J-Dub do something, right? Like, he pointed to the scoreboard, right? Looked back over the dugout, went like this, and pointed back at the scoreboard. And that's all he did. But
Right.
the entire game, they were chomping at him, right? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, bro, that was a prime example of what I've been teaching you your entire life. That was the time and place to do that,
Right.
right? They rode you the entire 7 innings. And when it was all said and done, you just pointed to the scoreboard and gave him ducky lips, and nothing else had to be said, right? Like,
Right. The score proves itself. It showed itself.
and had they not rode him like that, he'd have never done anything, right?
Right.
He'd have just gave high fives, and went on about his business.
Right.
But speaking of Dub, I got to give him a little shout out here. He put in for a deal to do one-on-one training with Tim Naiman and Trevor Bauer.
Oh, wow.
And so starting next week, he starts one-on-one training with Tim Naiman, which Tim Naiman is very well known in the MLB world for conditioning, right? And strength
Hmm.
training. And he selects who he works with. Like he picks and chooses which MLB athletes he works with.
Wow. Okay.
And him and Trevor Bauer got together. And so like Bauer's going to put together the throwing program, go over the stuff with them. They have talks 3 times a week with them. They give them stuff to do. Of course, it costs money to do it, right? But like I told Tim Naiman when we were doing the interview, when he got accepted, I said, you know, even if it costs me $10,000, I'm going to spend $10,000 going to PG and PBR events. If you get my son to where A, he never has another sore or hurt day again, that's a win. That's worth $10,000 all day long.
Right.
And B, we get him throwing 90 to mid 90s. I don't have to worry about going to PG and PBR because people are going to find a lefty that throws in the mid 90s.
Absolutely.
And he chuckled and he said, you know, based on those 2 comments, you guys are in, right? Because that's all we care about. J-Dub doesn't want to hurt again, and he wants to increase velo,
Right.
and it doesn't cost $10,000. It's not cheap, but it's not $10,000.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Oh, yeah, it's not cheap.
No, and only 5 kids they select every 6 months to go through this with them.
Really?
So out of and you had to submit a video, and we used his player of the game video from the showdown
Oh, okay.
when they
Right.
went 3-0 up there in Grand Junction at the
Yeah.
Four Corners Showdown,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what got him the interview.
Dude, he shoved it that day from what I heard.
Oh, dude, like not only did he shove it, like he hit a triple and a double. Like
It was a heck of a game.
you know, I don't brag about my son enough because A, I coach him and I don't want to be ever accused of daddy ball, right?
Right.
But that kid's stick has come alive. And like it's always been good, but dude, he's hitting the fence at PV every day at practice, like 10 more pounds, and he's putting it over the fence at PV. And if anybody knows anything about PV's field,
It's not
it's
small.
like 410, 420,
Yeah.
and 380 to the corners. Like it's a huge field. And so he's really coming along. Like I'm excited to see where he goes. Crowley said it best with J-Dub that he has a very high ceiling and it all depends on him. And this Trevor Bauer, Tim Naiman thing, you know, the dude was talking to us about draft and D1, and J-Dub's like, I don't really care about all that. I just want to throw better. Like
Right.
if I get to go D1 or I get drafted, great. But right now I just want to focus on never hurting again and doing what I need to do and doing it right because I don't know everything. I've learned so much over the years. I used to teach kids how to hit the outside pitch way wrong. Like I don't teach them that anymore, right?
Right. You learn.
Yeah. Like I evolved with the game and coaching. Like there's always somebody better, and if you're not willing to listen, and there's always somebody better on the field. And this strike zone deal, I can't plug Danny Lorett enough. And the people that he's got involved with it, you know, the Trotters, myself, De Hoyas, you know, and many more to come. He's done a great job putting it together for the kids to keep the cost reasonable. You know, having guys like Tim and Daryl Dryden at Train to Win,
Mm-hmm.
helping train these guys. Like, yeah, the high schools do workout programs and those kids get stronger. But I promise you, working out with one of those guys once or twice a week, if that's all you did, you're going to improve. You're going to see a drastic improvement because they know how to focus on your sport. Like Tim Rasmussen, you know,
Rasmussen.
yep, he's a Daryl Dryden guy. You know, Ethan Todd, he's a Daryl Dryden guy. Randall was a Daryl Dryden guy. You know, like he's had some phenomenal athletes come through there, and he gets it what needs to be done. And not a lot of people know this, but he's certified in dry needling, and I never believed in that until I had it done. No, the way that the dry needling works, like poking them needles in your skin to release the
Oh,
myofascial. Holy cow, bro! Like, if you're having back issues, call Daryl and ask him to set up a time to dry needle your back, and he'll go in there and he'll pick and poke with them dry needles and release that myofascial, get that blood flowing into that area again. You will feel like a brand new man. Like, dry needling is where it's at. But I'm excited. AABC did the best thing I think they could have done for the area by making this happen. Development's going to be better. It's got to be, or we're not going to be having a host team with local kids in it. And okay, yeah, there's the 6, whatever. But if you're not good, you're not going to play. And I think in the next 2 to 3 years, that rule will change once we get all this stuff up and going, right?
right.
Once we get the development back to where it was, once we teach the kids how to have grit again, stay committed. And I'm not saying don't be a multi-sport athlete. Like, you can do both. You can do all 3. But
Right.
you've got to take the time to stay crisp in each one, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And I don't care what ESPN says. You don't see too many two-sport athletes anymore.
No, you don't. It's too hard.
You know,
It's too much
football,
competition, and it's just
it's way
there's
too
just too
hard.
much. Yeah.
It's way too hard. Like, football didn't used to have 5-on-5 and 7-on-7s. You know, it wasn't year-round. It was, you were at the gym in the off-season, you know, maybe go to a camp here or there, but it was never what it is today. Baseball the same
Right.
way, right? Like, basketball's always kind of been at the upper level year round. Like,
Yeah.
it seemed like basketball was always going, maybe not at the high school level, but you always had something going with basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at the athletes today, the dudes that are pros because they worked hard, they committed, and they were driven.
Right.
There was no days off.
Nope. That was their
You
goal,
know,
is to make it to the show, and their days off were, well, because they're hurt or whatever, just because they had to take it off. It wasn't because they're choosing it. Somehow they were working on something every day, and that's how you get to that upper level of, I mean, even colleges, but also, making the pros. I guarantee there's not one person in the pros right now that doesn't work their tail off every single day to try to better themselves, because you still got to basically make the team. Even if you have a contract, you still got to make the team every year, even though you have a contract. So you better keep up with whatever they pay you, because if not, you'll be
yep,
released and no more baseball for you.
because there's always somebody better behind you.
Yep.
There's
And they're
always
trying to get to
somebody
the show.
hungrier and younger.
Yep.
You know, my wife and I get in a lot of arguments about being a kid, right? And I'm like, he can be a kid, but there's going to be things that he misses out on. His fun will come if he makes the show and is a millionaire, and then he gets to have all the fun he wants while he's working hard, right? Like,
Right.
dollars
Now he's doing it for a
make
living.
up. Yeah. And I tell him all the time, I'm like, bro, I don't remember a whole lot about high school. There's a lot of things I do remember, but that's a glimpse in the past. Like, don't live in today, live for tomorrow. Like, keep that dream alive, keep pushing
Right.
hard. And we got some kids here. I feel this year I'm not gonna say it's gonna be a walk in the park. You know,
No.
I know I said on Facebook on one post that, you know, we were gonna win. I didn't catch no flack over it, but I'm not gonna change that. Like, we're gonna win. And, you know, Mike said he's driven and he pushes himself for those kids and pushes those kids. Well, I'm no different. And I think I can't wait, right? Like, I can't wait to have that tournament. We're going to go play in Denver, and I hope we win in Denver, but a big part of me wants to wait and play here, right?
Right. Right.
You know,
But what a better
because
even testament for you guys to go to Denver and win in even a larger tournament that I guarantee the New Mexico one's going to be. In the sense, they're going to be like last year. There was 28 teams in there, and there was 6 of them that, dude, were very, very, very good ball clubs. The Roots, SoCal Renegades were there. You have the Dallas Patriots that ended up going, of course, they ended up winning that one. Tulsa Stanlaw was in there. Well, there's 3 of those 4 teams I just mentioned they played in the World Series. So if you win the Denver one, I feel like it speaks more volumes than just one of the the New Mexico one, but I understand why winning the New Mexico one will say more. But as a tournament side of things, I say the Denver qualifier may even speak more volumes.
It says more in the local aspect, right?
Right.
It says more for the where we're at, and does it show that Farmington can still get it done, or does it show that AABC made the right call and pushed everybody to get better, right?
Both. I would say both.
And I know I've seen stuff on the Facebook and whatever, run them out of town and this and that and the other. Well, I got to give Richard props here, and I don't ever give Richard props, but he's taken the beating. This was a board decision.
Yeah, but he's the president, so
decision.
Yep.
And he's taking the beating, right? And I got to give him props for taking the beating because it wasn't an easy thing to do.
No.
And I don't think it'll stay this way. I think it'll go back once we get the drive and the competition back. I think we're going to come back and have the Connie Mack World Series local Farmington League team as the host again. I really do.
I do too.
And I can't, people say FABC didn't put a product on the field. Well, I said this earlier, and I'm going to say it again. It's not FABC's fault. All they do is facilitate, right? It's not their fault for the product that they had. Now, could they have changed some rules and made things more open and competitive for the situation? Most definitely. That could have been done. But at that, did we really want it to be white handbook rules for league? Like, at that point in time, no, nobody wanted that, right? Like, us coaches, maybe, but the parents, they want it to be our kids. And that's one of the places where Eli got in trouble this summer, and the parents getting angry with him, is they didn't understand the difference between playing in Connie Mack and a high school game.
Way different.
And yes, he had an all New Mexico team, but those kids that played well for him all summer, and some of the performance showed. Like, I'm not going to pick any one player out. Some of the performance showed at that higher level under that stress. And I don't care who you are. Until you step out on that field with 7,000 screaming people and camera bulbs going off, the wind blowing in your face, nobody understands.
Nope.
Those pitchers, those hitters, the only hitter I will say it probably didn't bother was that dude from Texas 12, man. I don't know if you remember watching that guy or not, but dude that bent backwards like this and basically pulled the Babe Ruth and then put it right over the scoreboard.
Yep. I can't remember his name, but he wasn't nervous at all.
No. That dude straight crushed. And that was the only home run he had that game. But, yeah, he absolutely lit that up. Like, he wasn't nervous.
No.
And that's the difference with some of those guys because they played in some bigger events in the past, right?
Right.
You go to PG in Georgia, dude, that's another realm where there's tons of people, tons of scouts, pressure's on. It's not the same atmosphere, but those guys have seen that kind of stuff before.
Right.
And they're used to it. That gives them a little bit of an edge.
Right.
And even though it's your home field, and that's the other thing, if anybody gets anything out of this podcast, go watch baseball. Help the kids. Go watch baseball. Right? Like, why is there only 50 people in the stands? We should have 400 or 500 people in the stands at every high school game at Ricketts. Like, I understand not wanting to go to the complex or Worley and sit in the sun or whatever, except for Worley's cover is freaking amazing now.
Yeah, it is.
But go support these kids. Get out there and go watch them play. Help them prepare for Connie Mack.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
The more fans we have in the stands, the easier it's going to be for these kids when Connie Mack comes.
Right.
Don't be a keyboard warrior. Get out there and watch.
I like that keyboard warrior, man. That's been used more and more in the years, past years. So I have one more question for you, and then we'll close this out. Man, I appreciate the time. How do people, if they're interested in going to getting that development that we spoke of this whole podcast, do they get a hold of you? Where do they go? And what's the avenue they need to go to start getting that development that we all need around here?
Then give me a call, give Danny Lorett a call.
Okay.
Um,
Danny
call,
Lorett at Strike Zone.
yeah,
Okay.
you know, give us a call. I'll give you. You got my number. You can post it up
Yep.
there. You got my email.
Okay.
Feel free to put it on there. Like,
Is there a website they can go to?
I don't know. Like, I'm just getting into all the strike zone stuff.
Okay. No,
I
that's
don't know
fine.
what we have and what we don't have. Tim runs Farmington. Sean is head of baseball operations and takes care of the national team, right? So I'm still learning all the intricacies of all this stuff.
Okay.
Right now we've got the 18U team. I've got a 14U team that's almost got enough players to have a full team, but not and some 12 and 13-year-olds that have contacted me wanting to get involved. But more than anything this fall, if I can say anything, give us a call. Let us know that you're ready to go because we can put things together and I don't want to put money and resources into something and not that 2 or 3 kids don't deserve it, right? We'll still work with those 2 or 3 kids, but show the interest and that also helps us drive cost, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
If we have 50 kids that want to get involved in the middle of this, it's a lot easier to keep it reasonable. If there's only 10 or 15, the price is probably going to be a little higher, right? Because
Right.
we got to cover costs.
Right.
So even just letting us know that you're interested helps us set the goal because this hasn't been done in a very long time. Adam ran some stuff early on and had some camps, but it was, again, that was different than this, right? And
Right.
it's going to take time to do the individual workouts with the kids
Mm-hmm.
so that we can do the plan, like let us know you want it. Let us know you're interested and we will make it happen. Like it's going to be rolling out anyways in the next 7 to 14 days. But in that meantime, if you've got any interest whatsoever, please just even a text, Facebook message, whatever. Yeah, man, I'm interested. I want to see what's going on, what you guys got planned. And that will help us know how to approach the cost structure and the timing that's going to be involved because
Yeah.
that interview process with the kids and the workout is almost like a 2-day deal. Workout one day and then you got to spend an hour with them the next day, right?
Okay.
Sitting down, having that conversation, and you might allow just a little bit more time for Q&A with the parents, especially if they have a lot of questions. If they're not real savvy on some stuff. So,
Right.
we got to set that time frame. The other thing on that note, if you're homeschooled, like we're open in the day. Like I'll be there during the day. You want to come in and you're being homeschooled and you want to use this as your PE, let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, I like that. No, I like that a lot.
And one last thing I got to throw out there for you.
Sure.
We're going to try to bring college baseball back, and the goal behind that is in the fall we want to go play the JUCOs.
Okay.
With our fall teams, right? And so in order to get these coaches at the JUCO level to want to play us in the fall, we got to have a salty mix.
Right.
Right. I can't take a bunch of sandlot dudes out there that aren't going to give them anything to grow on.
Mm-hmm.
I got to take grinders out there. And that's another one of our plans that are in this progress is let's get that coming back. Let's get those college kids back. Let's get our kids playing these JUCOs in the fall. And now they're getting seen, and they don't even know they're getting seen because we're just there to play baseball.
Right. Let's go there and have fun, but also be competitive.
Yeah. So I know it's a lot to consume. Danny laughed at me, and he's like, dude, I can tell if you look at my notebook, I got 4 years of planning this out, right? And a lot of silly, stupid ideas that I've kicked out on my own, but it's taken a minute to do it. You look at Amarillo, Abilene, they got phenomenal training facilities for athletes. And I don't care what sport it is. And that's the other thing with Strike Zone. Like, we're going to grow. and we're going to grow with the other sports. Like, it's not going to just stay here with this. Like, if there's an opportunity to help kids and help the community, that's
Hmm.
what Danny's goal is. Danny wants to help the community. And, if somebody came to him and said, man, we want to do this, this, and this with tennis, and we could make it work, man, he would make it work, right? Like,
Right.
that's where we're at. And
Love it. Love it. Love it.
I'm way excited. I could talk about it for hours.
I love it. Well, first of all, it shows your passion. Second of all, it shows you that, hey, you're willing to take the time to, instruct and teach and develop these young men, young women too, especially on the USA women's side. Man, that's exciting to see all of that.
I'm
And
way pumped about that.
there's a lot to offer here. I think it's an opportunity that nobody's ever done. So I'm excited to see what this pulls out. We'll have to revisit that here in the future. You and I talk about the USA baseball side of things, the women's side of things, and see how that's going for you, but also promote it more so we can get the word out, and also hopefully get more, young women athletes out there willing to go that route because it's there. I know it's there. I know there's a lot of girls and, young women that want to go that route because they love baseball, but they're stuck in the softball world because that's what they're told they have to do.
Well, when you
So,
coached, how many teams did you go up against when you were playing indigenous teams that had girls playing on the team? Like,
oh
almost
goodness.
every almost every indigenous team I ever played had one or two females playing on that team.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times they ended up being the best player on the team.
Yeah, and I remember back in the day there was this girl from Shiprock. Man, she shoved, bro, straight shoved. And dude, if she had an opportunity like this back then, no
Oh
telling
God.
what her future could have been, right?
Right.
And that's
Absolutely.
that's just the kind of opportunity we want to help these people achieve. Like, if you can
Right.
dream it, we want to help you make it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So in saying that, Martin, man, great job, great information. So much to look forward to on the Farmington/Four Corners side of things, on the baseball, on both women and men's baseball side of things, young men and young women. I'm excited to what's come, and I will post all of this in the links in the description. And man, I appreciate your time.
Hey, man, thank you, buddy.